of Wednesday, December 3rd, 2023.
13th.
Oh, December 13th, 2023, excuse me. Let the record show all councilors are present except for Councilor Schweiberger. Could I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Mayor, if I can interject.
Yes.
Councilor Hildenbrand is not.
Oh, I'm sorry, and Councilor Hildebrand.
Thank you.
Again, asking for a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve.
Motion approved by Councilor Faso,
Support.
support by Councilor Whitney. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We'll move on to bids and quotes. We'll move on to City Administrator, Mr. Przezinski.
Mr. Mayor, City Council, thank you. We're here this morning to talk a little bit about some recapitalization of our water assets. We've been working since basically January with our Public Utility Commission on a conversation about, again, recapitalizing some of our water assets, in this case, pipes in the ground and our water treatment plant. We have before you today actually two actions, two separate resolutions to acquire some PFA dollars for that recapitalization plan. I'm going to kick it over to Luke here in a second or so, and he can kind of talk more about the overall plan. But our Public Utility Commission has sponsored and accepted an overall recapitalization plan. This is phase one, so to speak. And what we're trying to do is make sure that that core service is delivered to our residents efficiently and effectively. Again, it's a core service. We want to make sure that we take care of that part of our business and make sure that we have good assets to do that. So I know there were two separate loans, two separate resolutions, but before we take action on that, Luke, if you want to step up to the microphone, maybe you can give us a quick overview, talk a little bit about process and next steps, and then we can go from there.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Administrator Przezinski and Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Thank you for welcoming back on behalf of the Public Utilities Commission for this important funding of our much-needed infrastructure improvements. As you know, Hibbing has 100 miles of water pipes, and the average age is right before World War II, and we have some catch-up to do on old infrastructure, needing to replenish it and update it. The Commission, the Public Utilities Commission, has been very grateful to work with the state of Minnesota, the Drinking Water Revolving Fund, as well as the support through the Department of Health to have our capital improvement plan approved and also prioritized for funding. And so the first phase of this capital improvement plan is, as Administrator Przezinski talks about, recapitalizing of the priority areas of the water system. So first priorities first, source of supply, the abandonment of Scranton Well and the potential crisis that created within our drinking water source of supply is mitigated most by replacing our existing water treatment plant and building a new water treatment plant at Cary Valley over by the airport for that. So of the projects that you will be funding through this loan approval today is the replacement of the existing water treatment plant and the new water treatment plant at Cary Valley. We are in the process of also getting state earmark funding for completion of those projects all the way. This will cover the first phase of those projects. The second of all is the water main distribution program, where this summer we replaced 1.6 miles of water main in the city of Hibbing. One project on Minnesota Street, the other one on Stunson Hematite, and a second one on 18th. And we are very happy to continue that project and to move the needle forward. Both projects were delivered under budget and on time. Very happy to have the low-cost financing provided by the state of Minnesota for this.
Very good. Any questions of the council? Time frame, I know we're looking at funding, we're at the beginning of this project. Just for the public that's watching, what is your overall time frame for PUC for two components? One, the water treatment plants. And I know the water distribution is gonna be a long process. If you could just let the public know what the time frame would be on both.
Sure. So for the issue at hand, the water main project, that was completed this summer. So of that one smaller portion of the ask, that one is complete already. For the larger portion of the project, the water treatment plant on Town Line Road will be anticipated near completion by the end of 2024. Okay. is the thought for that. And then the Cary Valley Water Treatment Plant, pending final engineering, no sooner than the end of 2025 for completion of construction. So we do have a couple of years of hard work still ahead of us, and more to come on that, but this gives us the long runway. And I'll also mention too, as part of the new process and the large infrastructure funds that are available, we've also improved our process where with the existing rehab of the South Water Treatment Plant, we've been able to leverage a new statutory area of construction projects where construction manager at risk, where we've actually locked in the price for the water treatment plant on Town Line Road, where it will not exceed the price that we have committed. So in this era of rising costs, it's very nice to have that price certainty for our ratepayers.
Very good.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Luke. And as we know, this is a needed project. So I just have one question here. So the PUC is coming to us now for a $15 million, requesting a $15 million through the PFA. Will the PUC be coming back into the future for another PFA request, since you said this is phase one? And the reason that I ask this is that I don't want to tie future council, ratepayers, or taxpayers to unknown debt. So what does that look like in the future for phase two, or however many phases, what that cost might be?
Yep, that's an excellent question, Counselor. We do expect to come back and ask for more additional PFA financing as we get through the project. But with that, the council has full authority to approve or deny those future requests. So there's nothing binding at this point. As part of the long-term capital improvement plan, we will need to continue to build, to maintain our high level of service for our infrastructure. And so just to be clear though, the council is not approving any future financing beyond what is directly ahead of you here. And I would also just mention that the PFA is the state of Minnesota's water bank, and they have very attractive costs of funds. And so they're always a very good value for debt financing for cities and communities across the state that are doing that. But there are obviously, with any kind of financing, there are risks associated with it. The council is doing its appropriate due diligence to make sure it's asking the right questions. There is no guaranteed or required financing moving forward with this. However, as part of a very low cost of funds profile, it's important that the council know that having low cost debt in your funding pool is very important, especially to get the outside grants, because no outside funder wants to fund a project at 100%, right? They want to see what the skin is in the game for the existing ratepayers. And so with that, we target about a 50% debt financing is a kind of the long-term balanced capital structure for a water project. That said, I will also mention that as part of the covenants that the commission has made to the city council is to have a long-term rate study performed. And so with all that, the council will have kind of updates on how the rate impact of the ongoing investments will be mitigated through proper financing. And I'm very proud of the interest rate that we've been able to achieve through the state of Minnesota. It's right around 2% for a 20-year loan, which if you looked at a mortgage rate today, I think it's north of 7%. So I think that just kind of goes to show that this is very affordable financing for the ratepayers. I'll also mention too that under state of Minnesota guidelines, we don't qualify for direct grants until we have debt on the books and we start, increasing some of our expenses on the water utility. I know our ratepayers won't agree with what the state of Minnesota guidelines are, but according to some calculations, it's up to $40 million of debt that the state thinks that the city of Hibbing can afford before, for its water utility alone, before we start bumping into affordability issues. I don't agree with it, but this is an important step forward to show that we're responsibly capitalizing.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. Counselors, any other questions?
Another thing.
Counselor Whitney?
Luke, do you have a target date to get all the phases done and replace all the World War II era water system in Hibbing?
You know, so we have a target of about 2% of our system per year. So the lowest hanging fruit is that pre-1930 vintage, which is about 25%. So about 10 years, we would be up to about the 1930s if we stick to the 2% a year timeframe. And that will flex, you know, because there will be some newer areas of town that might be higher priority than the old, depending on the area. So 100%, or I'm sorry, get all the way through World War II, I would say about 20 years at the current pace.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor?
Yes, Counselor.
Luke, just for information, can you tie the dollar amount to that? Because when we had that conversation, how much was it for the utility to replace 2% of the system each year? I want to say it was roughly $7 million.
Yeah, 5 to 7 million, depending on the project.
Yeah, so we would do more if we could afford to do more, but we simply can't move that fast. So, thank you.
All right. Counselors, anybody else? Mr. Pasinski?
Mayor, city councilors, the last thing I just want to add is a little bit about process. Even though this conversation is relatively short, I just want our residents to know that we have worked on this since about January, starting with conversations between Luke and myself. We've had multiple touch points, one of which was a joint meeting with our Public Utility Commission. We've had multiple workshops with our city council, robust conversation with staff, city, and HPU. I just want our residents to know that this has been vetted. We've taken a lot of time, looked at it a lot of different ways. But I think the thing that is most important is if the city places this debt, it is good for our residents from the aspect of a lower interest rate. I think that collaboration needs to be underscored, and that's exactly what we're trying to do. And I think this does that, so thank you.
Thank you so much. You know, I think the bottom line is the only other option is ignore it, which is how we got to this situation. So we can't do it. And I think we're taking the best approach that we can. And interest rate, I think, was mentioned how many times here. I think we're doing, and the PUC doing due diligence to make this as affordable as we can to move our very vital water distribution system to the 21st century. I thank you for your approach, and the council, the questions today were great. You know, the work that you've done, Ms. Pasinski, with the finance department, and Ms. Sepula in working with Luke and putting this together.
Mayor?
Yes.
The only comment I would make is both Greg and Sheena had raised concerns to Luke from the city's perspective with regard to making sure that the city could track everything.
Yes.
So there was language inserted into the resolutions that the commission approved last night that specifically set forth the rate study that Luke mentioned, as well as a debt service account that would be separate so that they could be easily tracked and accounted for, because that's on the city really
Yes,
to report back. Luke specifically brought that up to the commission last night, so they were aware of those obligations before they ratified their resolutions to the city.
Very good. And can you explain to the residents what exactly that is?
So there's the rate study is what Luke mentioned is contract with an outside firm to do a study over time as to what the appropriate rates are to meet the obligations.
Yes.
Not only for the current water system, but also to address this debt that the city, the resolutions to the PFA loan, the utility has already agreed to try and make sure that it's the water funds that pay for that debt going forward. The rate study is to make sure that those rates are set to actually meet that obligation. The debt service is literally to set up these funds in a separate account so that the city can track and report back. And so the utility, when they have the money, they have to provide specific information to the city so that they can report back. So it's tracked as separately, doesn't necessarily go into a general fund of the utility. It just be a separate fund so that the city and the Luke can track that information so that it's easily accounted for. Because if you want PFA loans in the future, you're gonna have to have been able to say that you properly addressed the ones now.
So it'll be in a designated fund, I hear you saying, Andy, specifically for that. But that fund will be managed by the PUC because the city is asking for this PFA funding with cooperation with the
It's gonna
PUC.
be
Are we
probably-
managing that fund or is the PUC managing that?
I think it's a collaboration between the two, because, the money might very well be in the utilities accounts, that's trying to work out the fine details of, but the information reporting is all gonna come through city's office, the treasurer. And Gina's the one who initially will get the money because it's
Yes.
city applying.
Right.
And then allocating it to Luke, but then the reporting has to be cooperative,
Right.
work together on that.
So we're dotting the I and crossing the T is what I hear you saying in our approach.
And
Which we have to do. As we move forward, it's important that we can show how we have managed these funds and these projects,
Right.
which should make it easier for us to move forward as we need to add additional funding in the future and requests.
Mayor, I just want to make sure that the council understood that city staff did not rubber stamp this. They
Yes.
actually looked at it close. They talked to their bond counsel as well.
Yep.
And got back to Luke with information. He then agreed that that should be incorporated into the resolutions, and he specifically advised the commission that this language was requested by the city, and he thought it
Yes.
appropriate because the city is the one who's on the hook to
Right.
make this application.
Absolutely. All right, I appreciate that explanation, Andy. And with that, is there any other information or questions for Luke or anybody else regarding this resolution? Then I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Pacинski, as far as, are you ready for number 8 to go before council?
I am.
Okay. So what I'm looking for is a motion to approve the resolution 23-12-05, authorizing issuance and sale of general obligation revenue note.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Motion by Counselor Bayless,
Support.
support by Counselor Fossil. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. B, Mr. Pacинski.
Nothing additional for the city council to consider on B either.
Okay. So I'm looking for a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion.
We have a motion by Counselor Hoffman-Sockman,
Support.
support by Counselor Whitney. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you. At this point, I'll look for adjournment.
So moved.
So moved by Counselor Bayless,
Support.
support by Counselor Fossil. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Have a great morning.